Thanks for joining. My name is Dr. Alan Jurim. I'm a digital dentist in lovely Woodbury, New York. On a beautiful winter's night, I'm here today to share with you our digital workflows through CADpro Academy and how we love to share with our education in CADpro Academy. So I'm going to be going over our digital journey, and some of the great topics that we always love to discuss in digital dentistry really begin with this digital evolution, how we go through this digital ecosystem, and our digital implementation, all the parts of how we're going to bring this digital technology together. And really our goal today is for me to share with you guys a taste of the type of dentistry that we do, how we like to involve our patients in treatment, and how we use technology to really make us better dentists, not to just say that we're digital dentists. So some of the most important topics that we always like to go over are these transformations in dentistry, our new patient workflows, how we see new patients and use the technologies with patient excitement apps, restorative workflows, how we implement the technology in the practice, and 3D printing, and especially the hot topic of digital dentures. So these are all real important topics that we love to share. My background is in engineering, so I was fortunate enough to go to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and I graduated in 2008 from NYU College of Dentistry, where I was able to combine both the technology language and the clinical knowledge and language that we use in day-to-day dentistry. This was my desk in dental school. You could actually see a little wax instrument in the back corner there, but I don't like to ever think I left my engineering background behind. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the background of the dental industry with Dr. Barbara Jurim, who's here in the middle, my sister, who is a prosthodontist, and we started to practice integrated dental together in 2010. And growing up in the background of the laboratory, which is Jurim Dental Studio, what we were able to do is see the laboratory side of dentistry, see the side that most clinicians don't get to really understand and witness, and that was our background. Our father, Adrian Jurim, is a master dental ceramist, and we've run a family dental laboratory, a commercial laboratory, for many years. So in 2016, we took our state-of-the-art digital dental practice that you see here in blue, integrated dental, and we took the laboratory and we combined them under one roof. And because we got to see both sides of the workflows, both the clinical side and the laboratory side, and we like to share those experiences, we began and we founded CADpro Academy, where we love to do hands-on education. And those are some of the things I want to share with you today, is just a taste of the style of dentistry that we like to educate on in CADpro. So CADpro Academy is myself, Dr. Barbara Jurim, Mr. Sunil Abraham, Sunny Abraham, who is the Director of Technology here in our facility. Sunny is a certified trios trainer and speaks the technology language and the clinical language quite fluently. And Dr. Noreen Rajan, who also is a Straumann dentist, restorative dentist. All of us are faculty at Toro College of Dental Medicine, where we support the digital dental education and ecosystem for the school. So here is our academy. This is where we share and we do our education and our live courses. It's been a real exciting time for us because we get to do hands-on education. We also have access to all the instruments that the laboratory as well as the clinical office uses, and we love to combine and share those workflows. So when we do live implant courses like what we see here, which was an implant studio course, the participants get to design their own case, we print them at night, and we do a live surgery the next day. And we've had a lot of really great courses here where we've been able to share those workflows and share through this really unique environment, both the clinical and the laboratory side and the digital side of all these different workflows. So in 2012 is when we began our digital journey, when Dr. Barbara and I decided that we've been working with digital in the laboratory for some time, and now in our own office, we thought that it was the time for us to take the plunge and see what we can do with clinical dentistry chairside. And so much has changed from 2012 to where we are in 2019. I love to share this video. This is a video actually of our office and just how we integrate the inputs, or let's say the scanning, into our environment. So we actually filmed this in between patients. It's when we had our Trios Wireless delivered, and it's a digital denture I have in my hand there. And it's so great to see just the range that we're able to accomplish with the technology that's supported through us with great partners like 3Shape and other partners that we use for manufacturing as well. And And if you look, you'll actually see our patients waiting. I was so impressed with the range and what we can do with our new intraoral wireless scanner that I just had to share it in between patients during lunch. And I got to give credit to Dr. Barbara. She's the videographer here. She's filming the whole thing. So digital dentistry has really been very impressive for us because it allows us to first and foremost connect the team. And connecting the team is one of the major powers that we can use with anything that's digitized on a computer screen. And really the next important part for us is this patient experience. And patients don't know how well we prepped a crown. They don't know how well our margins fit. What they do know is the experience they have in the office. And we want to leverage the technology to always enhance that patient experience. And we want to do this by tying emotion into their treatment. And with emotion, we can bring passion. And these are the key parts of the digital workflows that we think bring us the most success in our day-to-day operations. You know, a case like we see here where we start on the left and where we ended up on the right, digital dentistry hasn't necessarily changed how we end up, but it changes the steps that we do in order to end up with a very predictable and a very aesthetic and also a very how should I say, efficient workflow that allows us to simplify the process to make sure that by the time we get to this end result, we know exactly what we're looking for and we know exactly how to get there. So a case like this, where we start with this great pre-operative diagnostic data, this was actually designed with Trios Design Studio. And we use this information with the 2D mockup to do a 3D virtual wax up. And here we're using the RealView engine and we're doing a digital face bow where we actually are proposing very patient specific smile proposals based off of the dental facial profile. And these are some of the really fantastic tools that we love to share because it really allows us to get to an endpoint and it allows us to use this information to transfer to the patient's mouth and to better understand and design the smile before we actually go ahead and we begin preparing teeth. So we take this great information, we send it to one of our 3D printers, and we'll actually go ahead and print that. And we can transfer to the patient's mouth. This is done at a separate appointment. And we use this as a way to tie that emotion back into the case. So this patient gets to preview his new smile, and it also begins to further my education on how I want to prepare the teeth and also where we want to end up. And that's exactly how we then influence the final design here, the final units that we designed and I made with the Trios Design Studio software, as well as in-office milling systems. And we produce a really fantastic outcome where we know where we're going to end up and how we'll get there. And so what we're really seeing with digital technology these days is this convergence on how we have all these great different tools and how they all come together to kind of connect the dots in these digital workflows that are getting better and better every day. So let's talk about digital dentistry in 2019 and some of the hot topics still. Well, 3D printing and in-office milling machines are getting better, they're getting smaller, they're getting faster and less complex. We're able to use digital planning, like what we see here with 2D Smile Designs, to better understand and predict and also dictate the steps for aesthetic success and outcomes in our cases. 3D printing, also a very incredible topic when it's transformed and it's revolutionizing how we produce dentures as well as how we mill dentures in the office. And clear aligners and ortho. In fact, here, this is myself trying to label a clear aligner with a 3D laser etcher I got off eBay. It's hard to label those things in order so that we can tell the patients which one's which, and we also know. And well, that didn't really work. I ended up just etching my desk, but nonetheless, it's a cool video and I always love to share it. But all these tools and everything we have in digital dentistry really enhances what we can do in what I like to call our digital dental toolbox, our workflows, and how we can connect those workflows. And one of the key parts of digital dentistry is it's always been used for this restorative purpose. And one of the most exciting things, which is happening in the future, what's happening now, is how we're using this for a better diagnostic approach towards our patients and their treatment. And this is part of the concept of go beyond. We want to go beyond what the technology was first primarily used for and how it can really, really enhance our diagnostic process and tools available to understand this patient. So this is our Trio scan room, and what we designed and what we put together in our Trio scan room is really a very efficient way for us to capture this very important information. So we have a built-in Trios to the chair, so it's always set up ready to go. The patient sees themselves being scanned. At the same time, all the screens in the room always share the same information. And this is really valuable because as the patient is here, they have that experience of being scanned. We can share that experience with somebody who may be joining them, like a wife or spouse or child. And as well, we have a fantastic place in a non-clinical environment for us to use the patient excitement apps that are available to us in order to engage them with that emotional style of dentistry. And this is the information that we capture here. This is sped up a little bit, but really the process is supposed to be that it has to be as efficient as possible for us to gain this information. And we've been scanning for so long and capturing all of this really great data on our patients. And what it really began to occur when we were sitting down and I was designing this new facility is that we need a place where we can capture this information as fast as possible. And this is the information that we capture. So in another case here, for example, this patient came in for a consultation and didn't like their centrals, but also had brought up that they don't like these dark lesions that are on their bottom teeth, these abfractive lesions. And as I was explaining to the patient, I really think that this is probably has something to do with how your grinding habits are. She goes, no, 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 I don't grind. And so as we record the patient-specific motion with our intraoral scanner, you see here, we can actually pause it. And I can say, look at the canines here. Look how flat they are. And even better, let's sit on your tongue. And we can actually use this fantastic information to educate our patients and ourselves at the same time. So this is patient-specific motion that we record directly with our Trios as part of all of our intake and of our recall examinations, our digital examinations. And it's all about for us creating this digital patient library. And the more information we keep and the more information we record, the access to this information within our Trios dental desktop system becomes incredibly valuable to us now and even more so in the future. So what do we keep? We keep all of our intraoral scans. We keep all of our diagnostic scans, as well as our implant plans, our virtual implant plans, our smile designs. And the more information we record in our digital patient library, it becomes even more important for applications like this, where we can actually tell the software, we take all of our scans over time and we can play them almost like an Invisalign ClinCheck. And so we see here with our ortho patients, we scan them at periodic intervals so that we can track their progress of their tooth movements. And the ability to take all these scans and to have the software virtually align them and then allow us to recognize and see patterns within these scans. For example, tooth changes, tooth wear, shade change, gingival changes, bone changes. All this diagnostic information is there, and now we have better tools to allow us to analyze and to use that information as best as possible. So at Touro College of Dental Medicine, where I'm the director of digital dentistry, one of my most important projects was to try to take this digital ecosystem and bring it to the entire school. And so we have around 20 Trio scanners there. And the way that we use the scanners, and what's so important is that after this information is recorded, it has to be accessible. If you can't use the information for diagnosis, if you can't use it to understand the patient, then you're really not using it to its full potential. So one of the fantastic things we've done at Touro is the ability to take all of these great intraoral scans and the scanners and allow the students and staff at any of the virtual computers around the school to use their ID badges to log in and get access to this digital information so that they can use that information anywhere within the school environment. So we're taking this, and if the information is accessible everywhere, it can then be used for this very great diagnostic purpose. And of course, the restorative workflows as well. But what do all of these workflows basically have in common? Well, they all begin with inputs into the system, like what we see here with the three major sources that we use to digital imaging. We have intraoral cameras, we have intraoral scanners, and we have 3D cone beams. And these are the major ones that we use on a day-to-day basis. And this whole digital imaging ecosystem is how we're able to take this information and either share it with a lab or to use it within the practice itself. And this is one of the most exciting parts, is how we're able to do different workflows and how we're able to tie these workflows together and connect the dots differently. If there's certain parts of the workflows that I decide that I would like to do, for example, to design a same-day restoration, we have the ability to do that. If we decide that we are going to take this digital information and share it with a remote design center, our laboratory, we have those abilities as well. And that's one of the fantastic things that we do with our 3Shape Design Studio. We can go from here to here very predictably, and we can really increase the efficiency without compromising any of the quality that we expect and we demand to deliver to our patients. So we begin with the most accurate intraoral information, and from here we can put together a simplified design, and we can share this information to a milling machine and produce with some of the great materials we have available in digital dentistry today. This is one of the machines that we use. We have several different milling machines here that we use and we beta test for a lot of manufacturers. And I always think that if we begin with the most accurate intraoral information, meaning a scan like this where we could see deep down inside the proximal boxes and record that information accurately, we're going to generate a restoration that's going to be the most accurate fitting as well. So a lot of this always begins with the scans. In a case like we just saw there, we put together a design, we mill, these are two Smart onlays for the same case. We deliver them to the patient and we see these results on a day-to-day basis. Some of the other great parts is the simplified process of manufacturing, how the systems are trusted connections and they allow us to very efficiently go ahead and produce these beautiful restorations with minimal interruption to our day-to-day jobs as dentists. So a case like here where we're seeing this is a Lava Ultimate style inlay restoration, they almost blend in, and it's a fantastic fitting restoration, and it's one of the most gratifying procedures that we do on a day-to-day basis. A case like this where a patient had an implant planned, and as we were allowing the site to heal, we decided that we're going to create for our patient a PMMA prototype bridge. And I like to say prototype, I don't like to say temporary, because once we have this one, if we decide to mill it in PMMA, it's a prototype. If we mill it in a definitive ceramic, such as, or let's say zirconia, at that point, the fit is the same, and ultimately we have a similar design that can be milled in multiple materials. So here what you see is me designing a simple 3-unit provisional bridge that we're going to manufacture in acrylic. Now I sped this up 9 times. It took me 9 minutes to design this bridge. And when we mill it in a CAD/CAM acrylic, we end up with a very uniform, very dense, very strong restorative material that can then be used for us to deliver to the patient and have them wear for an extended period of time with the fit of a final restoration and the strength of a uniformly dense CAD/CAM acrylic. So this is what we see after our milling process, and the mill process for this took around 22 minutes. We milled this actually on the Z4 from VHF, and we deliver it to the patient. Actually, this patient is still wearing this, and it's a fantastic workflow. But look how we now tie that together by using a patient-specific motion recording as well. So this patient actually fractured the distal buccal cusp of number 19. And with their occlusion, we decided that we were going to go ahead, we're going to mill a restoration, but at the same time as we're designing this restoration, we're going to use that patient-specific motion in order to adapt the design and make sure that we are going to create the best fitting restoration that's already adapted to the patient. Now, if we design this one here and I turn on, and you're going to see in a moment, I'm going to turn on patient motion, I'm going to run the motion. And what's so great is look at the occlusal mark that we see here on the distal buccal cusp of number 19. That red interference that we identified through our patient-specific motion is the same reason why the patient broke the original restoration there. So we could automatically hit adapt design over here, and what it's going to do, it's going to remove that interference to make sure that as we deliver this to the patient, there should be minimal adjustments, as well as having a restoration which is going to be of proper strength, material thickness, and minimize interferences. Really, really great, and it's a fantastic tool, and it's so exciting for us. So as you see here, this is my digital ecosystem. This is actually where I'm sitting right now recording this for you. And as we go ahead and we finish the design, we send it to a mill. We actually have cameras in our milling room, so we can go around, I can check the stock of the materials. And one of the other really cool things that we love to do for that patient experience is, as their restoration is being manufactured, the patients actually get to watch through one of the IP cameras, an internet camera that basically works off the network. It allows them to actually see their restoration being manufactured. And it's a really fantastic part of that patient experience because it involves that excitement. They'll take pictures, they love to share it. And that really, really is a win-win because we have a one appointment visit, the patient has that experience, and we're delivering the best quality dentistry that we can produce. Very, very exciting stuff for us. Here's the mill process actually starting. And once that mill has been started, the camera, the patient's watching their restoration being milled, and they're taking that experience back with them. So let's talk a little bit about implants, and I want to finish. We're going to share one case that's an anterior implant. Then I'd love to share with you one of the protocols that we use for our implant restorative workflows. That's even a more complex case. But implants and implantology are really great because they allow us, using the technology of 3D cone beam scans as well as 3D surface scans with an intraoral scanner, to align different data sets. And once these data sets are aligned, we can use that for the most accurate planning. Now, one of the important concepts that I always like to teach is that I don't believe that every case needs to have a surgical guide. I believe that every case should be planned and should be surgically planned using the digital technology. And at that point, you decide if you need a guide, if you need a pilot guide, maybe assist guide, or maybe you don't need a guide at all, which normally isn't the case for us, but nonetheless, this is what's really important for us. So this is our patient. This is Ryan. Ryan's actually our implant rep, and he was selling us implants and came to us because he needed an implant in the site of number 8. And in our analysis and our workup, we decided that, it really is something going on between the width of number 8 and number 9. So we put together this proposed plan here. I'm going to try to turn the volume down a little bit. And what's cool about this design is that we use the root form alignment. So we're actually taking the cone beam scan of the patient and we're using that to help dictate a provisional restoration that's going to be designed to match the existing root form anatomy. And all of this is happening before the time of surgery. At the same time, we're doing a virtual wax up on tooth number 9 to make sure that we have ideal symmetry between the two centrals. And when we produce these restorations, we do a digital face bow. So here we are aligning the intraoral scan with the two-dimensional photo that's giving us the ideal width to length ratios of the two centrals. And we're going to use this information to help us design this root form anatomy and this guided provisional. So we're going to virtually articulate it. We're going to eliminate interferences. And now we're going to design a positioning jig that's going to do two things for us. It will allow us to position the provisional in the mouth relative to the implant once it's in its final position so that we can ultimately assemble it in the mouth together. And also we're going to use it as a matrix to help dictate our composite bonding that we're going to do on tooth number 9. And all of this pre-prosthetic planning allows everything to come together for us to produce a really nice result. And this is what I want to share with you, the results of a case like this. So we produce this before the time of surgery. We have our printed implant model, we have our positioning jig, provisional restoration, and any components that we may need. And what we do is we make sure those components are not pre-cemented. And this is what it's all about right here. So this is at the time of when we're ready to do the final restoration. And this is why we plan cases and why we produce the provisionals, because we want to begin healing and dictating where we want the gingiva to heal at the time of the surgery. But let's go back in time now. This is when we had removed the tooth at the time of the implant placement. Implant was place guided. And we then have our provisional that's in place with the composite matrix bonding. And so Ryan went like this for around 6 or 7 months. And at that point, we use our Ostel, we got our definitive readings, we're ready to restore the restoration, the implant. Here's with our 3-shape scan flag that we use in order to relate the position of the implant to the intraoral scans. And this is how we begin that restorative process. So we're going to have these really important data sets together. Let me go back one here. And we're going to make sure that we're going to use this so that we can produce a restoration for the definitive that's going to match the contours of the gingiva. We're also going to record the actual mandibular motions of Ryan, as well as the provisional. And so our workflows are pretty common for us these days in the office because we do them so often. And here's one of the key parts. When we work with any laboratory, especially our laboratory, we want to supply as much information to them as possible. We want them not to figure out and determine where they want to design the teeth, but we want to relate to them, this is what I want you to copy. And that's one of the most powerful parts of digital dentistry. So we begin here with the scan of the provisional. And once this has been recorded, we move on to the next scan where it duplicates it. And then we come back and we remove the provisional from the second scan. And now we go to the mouth, we remove the immediate restoration, provisional restoration, and we scan in our soft tissue. And this is immediate. So the second we remove that screw-retained PMMA implant crown, we now record the soft tissue. We then proceed to our next scan where we're now going to record the scan flag. But notice what we're doing. We're only recording this one area. We're not beginning a whole new scan and recording the entire arch again. We're going to take this information and we're just going to fill in the areas. And this is a true benefit to intraoral digital scanning, is that we can build the perfect impression over time. So here's us digitizing our scan flag restoration. And now we have our ceramic. And what we do in cases like this now is we will actually make what we call a screw-mented crown. The final layer of zirconia, which is going to be this coping where we do a porcelain buildup on, that is going to be a separate layer from the custom abutment with the tie base. And the restoration does have a screw access hole that goes through it. And the reason why we recommend this and why we follow this workflow is because a lot of times, especially on a single central, the ceramist is going to want to take this and do maybe 1 or 2 extra firings. And each time we don't want to burn out that tie base, and we don't want to try to put it back in the same position, which most of the time we do not always put it back in the same position when it gets re-cemented. At the same time, we take this custom abutment, which is ultimately going to be bonded to the final ceramic, and we stain that the stump shade of the adjacent teeth as well. So once the ceramic is fine, we then assemble everything outside the mouth. Everything is polished. It's one solid unit with the screw access hole going through the lingual, and that can then be delivered to the patient. And this is what that process looks like for us. So great results, predictable workflows, and for us, it's the most exciting part of dentistry because, again, we could tie all these different workflows together and we can really enhance the final outcome. So the last thing I want to share with you today is one of our protocols. I call them, and we call them, our CAD protocols. And these are a simplified series of steps that we try to help have participants take away with them so that they can follow and they can use these workflows in their office and they go. And one of the most common scenarios we see in the laboratory is case has a final implant impression that has been done once the sites have healed. This is now, for argument's sake, 6 months after the implants were placed, and now we have to go ahead and make the final restoration. And a lot of times in the laboratory, we see stuff like this. We see 4 or 5 different models. We see bites all over the place, bite with the temp on, bite with the temp off. And this is the main reason why we see cases that go back and forth to the laboratory. And the real reason is because what we have on the computer screen when we digitize the case doesn't actually match what's in the mouth. So one of the most important workflows that we teach and we recommend is to record the majority of information that is necessary for the case directly from the patient intraorally and use that and supply that to the laboratory. If we're trying to take this information that's digital, print models, and go back to analog and digital, we can end up losing resolution and accuracy. The most accurate way for us to record the bite is in the mouth with a bilateral bite supplied to us from the Trios intraoral scanner. So here's where we're going to begin. We're going to do our preoperative scans, and these are, let's say, our pre-preparation scans or the scans of the patient with their provisional on. So we're going to scan in this information. We're then going to copy this order. We're going to trim away certain areas and we're going to rescan in. And then we're going to duplicate the same order again. And we're going to now bring in our implant master cast. And I'm going to show you a couple of tips and tricks that we do that really simplify the process. So again, preoperative scans. In this video that I'm sharing with you, we had already actually recorded the upper and lower bridges. So here is us doing the bilateral bite registration where we're now relating the maxilla to the mandible. And the patient is going to have a lower implant bridge that here is in acrylic. This was delivered in our I4S protocol or our same day PMMA prototype implant restorations that get delivered to our patients. And now we're going to take this lower arch and we're going to make the definitive restoration. But it's been 6 months, the soft tissue has changed, and now we need to relay that information back to the laboratory. So we have an implant master cast that was taken at the time of the surgery, and the implants and that relationship that that implant master cast has of each implant relative to one another is going to be scanned in the laboratory. And that is used with the laboratory scanner for the accuracy of the fit of the bridge, but we're going to use the Trios intraoral scanner in order for us to generate and supply with the laboratory the other very, very critical data sets. That is what we see here first, the provisional bridge related to the upper arch and the soft tissue. We're also going to relay the lower gingiva after healing, and we're going to relay to them that tooth setup. And once they have all this information, the laboratory can go ahead with a very predictable result. And the case for us does not travel back and forth quite often. So now that we've recorded those preoperative scans, we're now going to duplicate the order. And that's what we see here. If this video will play for me, perfect. I'm going to right click, I'm going to copy the order. And at this point, we're going to go into the duplicated order and we're going to make some edits. But here's a very key part. We have these first order where we have the case already mounted, meaning we've established the relationship of the upper jaw and the lower jaw with the provisional in place. And when we duplicate that order, we're also duplicating that same exact coordinate, or let's say the relationship of the maxilla to mandible in this case. So if we go in and we erase out the provisional and we scan back in the tissue like we see here, we're still maintaining the vertical dimension that was recorded from the scan that we see on the left-hand side. So that's what we're going to do here. So we've duplicated the order, and now we're going to go back to the lower arch, and we're going to begin to trim away the lower provisional. And once we've fully removed the lower provisional from the scan, we're now going to go back in and we're going to re-record those areas in the mouth once the provisional has been removed from the mouth. So we're segmenting the provisional away from the rest of the gingiva. And remember, this gingiva has already been mounted in the correct vertical dimension against the upper arch with the provisional in place. So now we're going to begin rescanning the area. And when we rescan the area, we have a really great way of filling in that soft tissue, which is healed over time. And this scan is still related in the same vertical dimension to the upper arch or the antagonist. And this is how we supply information to the laboratory to make sure that they have the proper relationship of the upper and lower jaws in their design software. So the last step was we're going to go back to that first order and we're going to duplicate it one more time, because remember, we have to relate the implant master cast back to all these other data sets. So we go back to the original order, we're going to duplicate it one more time. And what's going to be special this time is we're going to take this lower scan and we're going to totally just wipe it out. And we take the bridge from the mouth and we actually put it on the implant master cast. So here we transfer the bridge to the cast, we scan in these areas, we make sure to record some of the borders of the cast. And now when we go to that bite registration phase with the bilateral bites, well, you guessed it, we're going to take the bites that were used from the preoperative scans in order to relate our lower implant master cast to the upper jaw or the antagonist. So here's that process. So now we've related the lower implant cast to the upper arch or the antagonist. So we end up with these three data sets. We have the provisional bridge or the tooth setup that we want the laboratory to follow or to use as a reference point. We have our updated edentulous arch with the soft tissue, which is healed over time. We also have that implant master cast, which has been aligned, and all of this is relative to our antagonist, which is our opposing jaw. So the scanning workflow for the implant master cast allow us to take these three different data sets, share them with the laboratory, everything is aligned and everything is simplified. So I invite you, and I'm so excited that CADpro Academy and Straumann are going to be able to work together in the future. CADpro Academy is a passion of ours. It's an incredibly exciting time in digital dentistry. And we have a course coming up on March 8th and 9th. It's a 2-day course, and we call it our Level 1 Evolving into a Trios Ready Office. A lot of what we described today with some of the workflows, as well as just how to integrate and use the technology properly in the office, is discussed in great detail with Trios experts, and also how we use it for that diagnostic purpose. We have on Friday and Saturday, May 10th and 11th, a hands-on implant studio course where we're going to be going over live guided implant surgery and how we produce and how we provide surgical guides and how we use planned implant surgeries to really make a more predictable and better outcome for our cases. So I thank you so much. My name is Dr. Alan Jurim, again with CADpro Academy. Take care and keep on sharing.